Okay, I make it 7 o'clock. That's conferred. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm obviously chairing this for the first time. I'm honoured to do so, and I have to say I'm very much looking forward to the period that we've got coming up. I'd also like to pay tribute to the immediate past committee, the Service Provision Committee, which I know has done a sterling job. And some of you would have looked back, some of you would have experienced that firsthand, and some of you would have looked back perhaps on minutes and recordings of that past work. Going forward, well, one point that I do want to make at this point is just to echo what was said at the council meeting, which is that it's hoped that we work as a team right across the parties and so on, different groups, and that we are far more effective if we do that. And certainly I think that's been the experience in the past. I'd like to just at this point sort of give across three of my personal goals from the position of chair in terms of going forward with this particular committee. One is to build on the previous efforts that have been made for greater rigour and accountability in getting clear, specific goals and objectives, smart objectives, as they would call it in the business world, from projects and beneficiaries of our funding. So that's one thing going forward. The second thing is to build on the efforts previously made for longer term financial planning and more specific earmarking to enable some of the larger spend beneficiaries in particular to plan ahead. So if we are making, and I know this will very much come into the hands of the F&M committee as well, but if we are making those longer term broad plans, at least they know where they stand with us and we know what we can expect of them as well. And my third personal goal is a mindset, if you like, about being ambitious, about hopefully seeing initiatives, about something that we can be dynamically proactive and going forward. It's not always for me about budget. It's not always about just saying, have we got the money to spend on this? We can take a role, I believe, as a council and as a committee here, as a lead role in the community, in initiating ideas, initiating projects and programmes. And it would be good to see that happen, I think, alongside all the other responsibilities that we already know we've got. So it's just sharing with you folks. So moving on, public question time. We've no members of the public as such.
We've one member of the public who happens to be a parish councillor who's coming to speak if standing orders are suspended at a later item.
Yes, that relates to an item on the agenda later.
And Dawn will be joining us shortly.
Okay, thank you for that. Nobody else has come forward. Next point is item 01 on the agenda, which is about public bodies. We're being recorded. You will know. It looks scary on the YouTube channel, but we are being recorded. Apologies for absence.
Yeah, so there's no other requests for recordings to be made? No. Okay. So no apologies have been received, and an email was sent out to that effect earlier.
Okay, thank you. Any personal and disclosable pecuniary interest in items on the agenda? Is there anything that anybody here needs to declare in the item agenda? Councillor Barnett.
I do. The Home for Civic Hall Trust, because I'm part of a charity, I gave some funding. I can't really comment.
Okay. Okay, be a conflict of interest potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
on the Civic Hall Trust as well.
Okay. I think you're there, of course, as our representative.
Yes, but it's still another interest.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Item 04 is written request for new DPI dispensations. I think this is just to the clerk to report further. Thank you.
Yes, so dispensations have been received and distributed by email for Councillor Barnett, Councillor Bellamy, Councillor Stewart, Councillor Green and Councillor Ransby. So there are DPI dispensations in place for all members of this committee and indeed the full council as well.
Thank you.
So can I suggest that that's taken as a motion to note?
Thank you. Okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Item 05 is the items that may be discussed in private session. Is there anything that anyone believes may be sensitive? I'm not aware of anything. Is anybody else aware of anything that needs to be discussed in private? No. Cool. Nothing else you want to add to that? Item 06 is the minutes of the previous Service Provision Committee meeting, which was actually held 27th of February this year. Now this actually was already, these minutes were already approved, I believe, at full council a couple of weeks ago. Is there, so as I understand, we're just noting that.
No, so. Yeah.
Okay. I think there's two people here, I think Councillor Green and Councillor Firth, that were actually at that meeting.
Councillor Black and Councillor Green were at
Oh, wait, sorry, my apologies. Sorry, I'm thinking about it's the November one. Sorry about that. And I think any items arising from that particular meeting are all coming up in this agenda.
Yes, yeah. As things progress, many of the meetings there will be sort of basically standing items that the committee considers because they're part and parcel of the scheme of delegation.
Thank you. So moving on, unless anyone's got anything else to say on that item. Item 07 is the election of Vice Chair of this committee for the coming year. So I'm looking for nominations. Any proposals?
I nominate Councillor Van Shelby.
Second.
Thank you. Are you willing to accept the nomination? Any other nominations around the table, please? No? Okay, so all in favour? Against? Okay,
That's carried.
that's carried, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm be cosy with you. You can share the gavel. So welcome.
Thank you.
Item 08 is budgetary matters. Clerk to report further. I know that Jen, you sent out an amount of detail with the figures and projections and so on. Do you want to speak to them?
Yeah, so just to say, understanding orders, this committee makes financial decisions for a number of community assets and projects, and a number of the items on this agenda later do have financial implications for this budget. So generally speaking, looking at the Service Provision Committee budget and spending comes as an early item in the agenda, so you know what monies you have as a committee before you make any financial commitments within the meeting. So the service provision detailed income and expenditure by budget heading up to the 30th of April 2023 and the earmarked reserves were both part of the documentation sent out to you to clarify the availability of funds. It also allows you as a committee to monitor potential overspends and underspends and so manage your budget. So my thanks go to the Deputy Clerk for providing those two reports. The new Council and indeed the new Service Provision Committee has got several budgetary lines that it's likely to review at later meetings, such as the Christmas spending and so forth, which generally gets treated as regular annual expenditure. And then there's things such as the Home Valley Patient Transport Scheme, for which kind of contract will be brought to the September meeting for the scrutiny of this committee. But just to say, anything you want to ask about that's on the two reports, either by budget heading or indeed anything to do with the EMRs, I'm very happy to answer questions, and if I can't answer them at the committee, I'll always go and find out the answer by talking it through with Rich. So just to sort of bring that to your attention, really. Okay.
The patient transport, when you say we'll be looking at a sort of contract, will that include performance indicators and things? Because we never have before, and I think we should. The
resolution at the full council meeting regarding this specified that it was to be a simple service level agreement. So
but
it was.
That doesn't preclude having stated things that they need to achieve and deliver.
It doesn't preclude, but I would take you back to that meeting, and certainly if we listen back to the discussions over it. The feeling that led to that resolution was that it was about simplifying the process for Home Valley patient transport. So yes, it can have those kind of targets in it, but whatever is put in place mustn't go against the basic tenet of the resolution you've already made.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else in that point, Councillor Green?
Yeah, I'm not sure what targets we could set them other than reporting back to now on patients and transport.
And if they turn up on time, if they fail to turn up, I mean, we have never had feedback, ever.
How would you like to word it?
Sorry, can I keep this through me rather than across the room? Councillor Dixon.
Sorry. They have previously come and reported to us, but maybe not recently, but they have done before and given us details of the numbers of people they're taking and to the areas they're taking, because we do take people outside of the Home Valley as well. So any grants that we do give are supposed to benefit the people of the Home Valley, so it's a bit of a grey area when they're also doing other people as well. But they are providing a good service in general. But we could ask for them, the part of the contract is that they come and give a yearly report and provide us details of how many numbers of people, like they have done before, and just details of other funding as well, other grants that they've got. So something like that could be put in place, but it's difficult for them to have targets.
Sorry, I don't want this to sound like a criticism of them, it isn't. It's just us being rigorous with budgets and money and our supplies, and I think Councillor Dixon's suggestion is an excellent.
Can I ask, is this perhaps more of an issue about the reporting back, as Councillor Dixon says, and having a reasonable idea, as to what's going on, as opposed to targets that we're expecting them to actually hit?
Yeah.
And that might be a concern at a later point, but for now, that's what we're looking for. Is that okay? Councillor Barker?
Just following on that point, really, other organisations that get grants are now required to complete an end of grant return, and I just wonder if perhaps we might draw up something to be used for the patient transport system, so we are getting back the information that we need. Again, it could be quite simple, but at least if we do that, then we're in charge of the data that we'd be getting back and seeing if we are getting value from them.
So am I tabling this, is there a motion as to what we're, I mean, we've already approved this for this year.
Yes,
So it's not a conditional funding in that sense.
No, so I would be asking at this stage for the committee to note the budget reports that have been submitted and not necessarily needed to have any further motion regarding this. What I tend to do in the agenda is, if I think there may be a motion that you want, I'll put something quite open-ended in the agenda that can then be amended into a motion you might want to consider. So you'll find quite often it might say to consider any further actions. It's to give you the freedom as a committee to formulate what motions you wish in the meetings. But on this occasion, it may just be that you want to note the budget reports.
People happy with that? Because I don't want to lose the point that's being made here. It seems to be agreed by everyone. I don't want just to disappear. But we are, as you say, just noticing this for now and may sort of develop that later. Is that okay by everybody? Okay, thank you. Anything else on the financial details at all that anyone wants to query? Can I just ask? Or we'll leave it at that. Okay. Thank you. Hello.
So do help yourself, sort yourselves chairs and whatnot, and you have to stand. Well, shall I go there?
This is perfect silence.
Dawn from the Civic and Billy from Holly.
Yes. That's on cue. Give you a chance to settle in because the next item on the agenda is actually Holly Library.
Right.
So just take your time. Yes. So, okay, so Clark will go through some explanation here and some a little bit of background and so on, and then we'll move on to hearing from Jenny Davis.
So as was in the narrative of the agenda, the representatives from Friends of Honey Library are here to present their second report and also a programme of energy saving works to be funded up to £10,000 from the earmarked reserve 335 Honey Library Energy. Regarding that particular EMR, it was set up to assist with any retrofitting or works needed to make the library energy efficient. The annual parish council meeting on the 27th of March 2023 resolved to approve in principle to release up to 10,000 from that EMR for energy saving works, subject to the submission of an appropriately detailed programme of works to this particular meeting, and that programme of work has indeed been distributed. Now I'll go on to the Honey Library budget line 4300. There's 15,000 in this budget line, and that goes towards the general running of the building, energy bills and so forth. And to sum that up, the payment of 15,000 from that budget line will feature on the schedule of payments that will be presented at full council on the 26th of June and paid out after that date. In other words, just to be clear, there's no further grant application or anything that Friends of Honey Library need to do regarding that budget. What we have agreed is that they account to Rich as our Deputy Clerk and responsible financial officer for what their spending is. So keeping in communication regarding energy bills and so forth. Okay. So in line with financial regulations, once authorisation is made from this committee for for any expenditure up to 5,000, a request for payment, which is the actual release of the monies, via a schedule of payments, has to go through either Finance and Management Committee or full council, whichever is soonest, because those are the two meetings which alternate each month. A further 15,000 does remain in the earmarked reserve 332 Homley Library. Now this might be accessed should Friends of Homley Library submit a grant application for capital works, and if that was so, only full council could authorise the release of that monies because it's from an earmarked reserve, and therefore at a future date, not tonight, but at a future date it may well be that the Service Provision Committee can make recommendations to full council regarding the release of monies from that earmarked reserve. So I've sort of tried to set out as plainly as I can there all the sort of budget commitments that the council has made via the Service Provision Committee budget for Homley Library.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to welcome the two representatives from Friends of Homley Library. If you'd like to introduce yourselves to the committee and address your report.
And suspend standing order.
And suspend standing order, yeah. I was just checking you will. Well done.
My name's Jenny Lockwood. I'm the Chair of Trustees for Friends of Homley Library and also a member of the Management Committee and obviously a volunteer. That's it, I think.
Malcolm Ellis, I'm a trustee. I've been a trustee for 3 or 4 years, I think.
Yes.
Much shorter period of time than Jenny. I'm a surveyor, retired, but obviously getting involved with the building related matters to do with the library.
Chair, I've just realised I should declare an interest. I'm a trustee of the library.
Thank you.
Me too.
From the council, I think it was the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So you submitted a report
Yes.
already, quite an amount of detail. Is there anything you'd like to add to your report? I'm hoping that everyone here has read it already.
I think, just to say, if you read the report, that progress from when the lease was signed in December last year has not really been as fast as we would have hoped, because having gone through 6 years of negotiation to reach asset transfer, the local authority did not put money into the library apart from health and safety provision. So we've had quite a bit of just basic catching up to do. We'll refer to Malcolm here, but because of that, we've had so much to do to check things like the damp, the gullies, the gutters, the drains, the overgrown trees, all the things. And it's been a question of trying to plan a programme of work so that one thing doesn't undo another when there's so much to do, if you get my drift. Can you follow on that?
Probably a couple of years ago I produced a prioritised scope of work which set out plan of action over sort of 3 to 4 years, and I think that needs refreshing. We did talk about it when I met last week. I think it would be useful for the Parish Council to have sight of that, so you can see an overall plan and objective over that period of time. And Jenny's right, obviously the building's not been maintained very well over the last few years, so there's a lot to get our teeth into. But we are starting to do that. And alongside the basic maintenance, and this is where we'll come on to the £10,000 which we're hopefully will get signed up tonight, is the environmental side of the library. And as part of the initiative taken by the Parish Council, Pascal carried out a survey, I think it was last year or the year before, in terms of what energy saving measures needed to be undertaken. And there are a lot, and and we see the library as a great opportunity to actually put in place energy saving measures, which hopefully people living in the valley can see, appreciate, and hopefully replicate on their own properties as well. So this £10,000 is just the start of that process, really. But the Pascali report it's a great starting point for us to follow through on.
I think it's also important to say that we've got quite a big schedule coming up in the summer and autumn, and we are trying very hard to A, secure external grants, and B, get help pro bono. And we've already secured, as you will see in the report at the end, from Malcolm's company, ex-company, a firm of solicitors, who are doing a wonderful plan that eventually we can get architects. Surveyors, architects and surveyors, and if we are able to get, for example, a lottery grant, it would mean that we could extend the library to extend the community element, because at the moment there's lots of people wanting to use the library, there's lots that we need to do, but the current space and storage are a real handicap, really, to be perfectly honest. They limit what we can do at the moment. And again, from Malcolm's old company, all the work up to planning permission for an extension will be done pro bono. We're also getting quite a lot of voluntary work to help with the external, the gardens are terribly overgrown, and just this evening I found out that the Prince's Trust, which we approached, are going to bring a team of young men in about 3 weeks' time to do additional work on the gardens and to do a lot of the clearing for us. So I don't think there's much else I can say unless there are any more questions.
Can I just say before I open this up to questions, I must unsuspend standing orders now. We're still suspended.
They can still be suspended, because that way if there's questions they can be directed.
Thank you for that. I paid a visit there, I think it was last week, wasn't it? And along with 3 colleagues from this committee, just to learn a bit more about what was happening. And I have to say I was incredibly impressed with the work. I mean, as you quite rightly said, Jenny, the challenges that you've had over the last 6 years, not least with Kirklees Council, I think, have been tremendous. The forward thinking, the business-like approach that I saw, the efforts to raise additional funding and so on from other sources, the input from volunteers, the imagination, creativity, I thought were absolutely tremendous. And congratulations to you for doing all that. I'll open this up to questions. Councillor Black.
Thank you. I don't know how I follow that really, but what I was going to say is that is to congratulate the Friends of Family Library on being so assiduous in seeking funding from other organisations. You've obviously been incredibly creative in finding money elsewhere. So yeah, and it's never easy. So congratulations on that. I also wanted to ask, I think it's sort of point 2 about work was postponed because of damp in the buildings. Work that was scheduled for spring has had to be postponed. I assume that the damp is being addressed through some of this work. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is, yes. Some of the plastering sides have been affected by dampness, and that was due to overflowing gullers. And those have been cleared now. So the source of the dampness hopefully has been resolved.
It's dry.
Thank you. Any other questions from members? Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, I think Jenny's been very modest about the achievements in your first 6 months. I think you've done quite a lot. As noted in your report, you've done a lot, you've hit the ground running. The library's busy, and I've been there with my little helper. He's been there, he's really enjoyed the library, and But I kind of went there as a bit of a undercover, I'd say. And they didn't tell anybody as a councillor. I just went there in the summer and just like, I'm going to walk around and see what people were doing. And you see people going there to read the papers, people using the computers, people doing all sorts of all different ages, enjoying the library. And it was really busy when I've been on Saturday mornings, and it's really good to see. And it's one of the best things I think we've done as a parish council since I've been involved with taking it on, because if the village had lost this, they would have lost a huge asset which so many people use and enjoy. So it's really good, and well done, the good work, and hope the committee can keep on supporting you.
Thank you. May I just say that this, just to give you an overview, this weekend it's Open Gardens in Honley, which we have not organised, but we are to be the focus for people to come to buy their tickets, their armbands. And at the library over the weekend there will be about 5 different kinds of music. We've got a bookstore, we've got a tombola, we've got the Batman talking about bats. We've got
Well, that Batman.
it's not batty really. We've got the community garden people in, so it's brilliant to see that an awful lot of the village is coming together, and we're all supporting each other.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Bowman?
Thank you. I just really want to say to Jenny and the team, I think they've done amazing. To say we start, I mean, I was there at the very beginning, officers, and it seemed such a long time ago, and I am so pleased, and you seem to have come so far now with it. So I know we'll be down to visit you, so. Good. I just want to congratulate them on how far they've come along.
Thank you.
Can I just say, from my perspective of this, I mean, we want to do a major development subject to funding, but that can only be achieved in partnership with the parish council. So important, the relationship with the parish council, and I think that's very positive.
We could not have done it on our own. We could not have done it without your support.
And one thing perhaps I would just add here is we were talking about how the parish council's involvement is advertised and promoted
Absolutely.
publicly,
Yes.
and it is to some extent, but we think there are other opportunities to do that, to flag up just how much the council is supportive of this particular project and our role in it and so on. And I think that'll perhaps get passed to our comms committee
Yes.
to look at as well. There's a lot of love in the room. Any other questions? Any other questions at all? At this point? So we can unsuspend. See? So we are.
So we're looking for someone to put forward the motion and to second it then.
Yeah, I propose that we give them the full 10,000 towards the end of the works.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favour?
No.
Any against? Thank you, so that's carried. You've also got a line to consider further actions regarding the library.
Yeah, again, it's one of these open-ended ones. I'll just put it in case there's anything further you as a committee want to resolve to do regarding on the library at this stage. Might not be.
Can I suggest picking up on the point about the longer term sort of planning and so on? I think that we should, I'm not sure how specific we can be on this, but I think that there is perhaps an intention to have that ongoing dialogue with you, and knowing that you are trying to formulate and are formulating a 5-year plan, 4-year plan, and that we would be looking to look at our role within that.
Yeah, so I could just note in the minutes that for a future meeting to scrutinise any 5-year plan put forward.
Just to say that as we're speaking, we are just finalising the revision of the 5-year business plan. And the other thing we're doing, which I think Rich will be interested in, is that we've just done a complete new set of financial procedures, which I think would be, useful for you to have a copy of.
That's all I
Okay.
need.
Thank you. As a final note on this, I did comment to Jenny the other day when we met that it would be good that the report that came to us was good and very business-like. It would also be nice to get a bit, more of a flavour, if you like, about what was going on at the library and so on. Perhaps whatever goes to your trustee meetings or whatever, but that sort of information I think I would certainly appreciate, I'm sure others would on the committee.
We can certainly do that. We do a newsletter and we're fairly active on both Instagram, WhatsApp, and we've just updated our website.
Thank you. I think there's nothing else to be said on that. I'd like to thank you both very much for coming here and well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's actually very good.
I'll see you next week.
Okay, moving on to next item on our agenda, which is Hunferth Civic Hall Community Trust. So again, I'll suspend standing orders at this point, and if you want to do the same, perhaps, and give some background. And
So if I provide a little bit of context about what's in the narrative here, and I'm sure Dawn and will want to pitch in regarding that. So there are several motions regarding the civic for the committee to consider. One is to do with the grant application, and I must apologise, I didn't redact signatures from some parts of the grant application that I realised only after I sent out the paperwork, so apologies for that. But so there's a grant application, there's also recommendation to full council for expenditure of up to £500 for a valuation for the civic. That's required by our insurers. There's the change in use of grant monies to note to cover the remedial works to the fire alarm system. But there's also another motion which I am just going to suggest that you may wish to consider as a committee as well. And that's to do with the fire escape, which I know Dawn has talked about in her report and might say a bit more about here as well. Talking about the fire escape here. So the issue you face as a committee is that there is this earmark reserve with £10,000 available, and the grant application for 7,800 could come from that, and that would be fine. But also, I know the Civic wants to ask the committee to consider paying the overspend on the fire escape. So there is a way in which you can take forward recommendations to full council regarding that, and that is to meet remaining costs. If the whole 10,000 of the earmark reserve goes on the grant application towards the overspend on the fire escape, and then also to ask full council to commit £7,317.39 from general reserves. Okay, so I just wanted to inform you as a committee that in my discussions with Rich about this earlier today, at the moment, in terms of general reserves, the council has £133,000 in general reserves as of today. Now, the recommendation is that 25% of the council's income should be as general reserve, and that is 90,000. In other words, there is 40,000 in general reserves more than there really should be. So I just wanted to give you that context before Dawn speaks. Okay. Quite happy to answer any questions on anything I've said before handing over to Dawn.
Okay. Has anyone got any questions on just what's been said so far? Or you may want to come back and clarify something later on. Okay, thanks. In that case, I'm going to pass it to Dawn, and who's also supported by Councillor Wilson as the from a trustee's point of view tonight. So, Dawn, we can share some love with you as well.
Hello, for those of you that haven't met before, I'm Dawn Whiteley, I'm the Business Development Manager here at the Civic. So the report I've provided is on similar lines to the ones I've usually provided, which gives a bit of information on the ongoing projects, things that are happening in the future, how generally business is going, and a little bit, we include information about the forthcoming events because that was previously asked of us, so that's why you get a bit of a blurb at the end about forthcoming activity. So just in terms of ongoing projects, obviously our biggest project to date has been the office toilet store fire escape project, which you'll see from the report was altogether about £157,000 and has resulted in an overspend for a whole host of reasons, but primarily because work started at the beginning of the pandemic and then we had massive difficulties getting hold of materials, and particularly where steel is concerned, prices have escalated out of all reasonable thinking. So the project is now finished, apart from little bits of snagging, but as I've identified in the report, we are overspent on the bit that relates to the fire escape. I've tried to set out in the report the sort of context behind fire escape, and I think Councillor Dixon might be able to add something here, because I reference a working party that once took place about where the parish council might be in the building and the idea of having a fire escape, but it was the parish council who commissioned the fire escape in the first instance, and we were asked to add it to our project because it didn't make sense for the parish council to do one scheme and us to do another. We've ended up in a situation where that bit of the work is overspent, and so as Jen says, Clark says, we're interested in whether or not we might be able to offer some support in that regard. So that's where we are with the current project. I've referenced to future projects, the first one being where the grant application comes into play, looking towards the condition report and the maintenance and management plan. This is twofold really. One is to get a very good understanding of where the state of the building now. I am aware very recently of a report that was done in 2016, but obviously that is already 7 years old and was just on visible elements of the building. There wasn't any scrutiny as such done of the fabric of the building. So the grant application really is asking for support with a condition plan that looks at where the building is now, helps us develop a maintenance and management plan, which is similar to the one mentioned from Holly Library earlier, helping us set out exactly what the priorities ought to be in terms of repairs and maintenance on different elements of the building, so that we can come to you each year and say, these are the things in the next 12 months are going to need to be repaired or replaced or maintained or whatever, and then we can deal with other refurbishments and developments separately to that. I've also referenced we've secured funding now of £70,000 towards the 90,000 estimated costs for the refurbishment of the foyer, toilets and stairs. So I'm still looking for the remaining £20,000 on that, but I've got a couple of other bids in. Just in terms of business generally, we're more or less now back to a point where we are as busy with bookings as we were before the pandemic, but we're also seeing the attendance levels the same or similar to before the pandemic. So for the last 15 to 18 months, booking levels have been increasing, but actually we've had fewer people coming, so sometimes the returns haven't been as good, but we are more or less now back to a position where not only are the booking levels the same, but actually the number of people coming along are similar too. So So we're back in a position of feeling comfortable with the income and expenditure, which certainly hasn't been the case over the last year, where we've actually seen a deficit. There is reference in the report to the finances. We are on with the annual return for the current financial year. That's with the accountants at the moment, but there will be a loss for last year, so we have eaten into our unrestricted reserves. But fortunately, we had those built up through pandemic, in some cases through grants received and things. But actually, we did have the money to satisfy those. So we are in a stable and sound position, but we're not particularly affluent. Let's put it that way. So I don't know if you need anything else, or whether you want me to pick up on any particular points, or I'll just respond to questions. Or was there anything I should have said that I haven't?
No. Thanks very much for that. And I think you've covered all of it. I mean, if I can emphasise just one or two things. There's been talk about this previous survey, haven't we had one done before, why are we repeating it? And I would point out, as Donna said, it wasn't the same thing. I think it was, and some of the previous members might remember, I think this was done as a, just making sure the building wasn't going to fall down before we took it over.
That's about it, I think.
So, and it's 7 years old now, so what we're looking for now is something significantly different, and it's from an architect who we've selected from a whole host of architects, trying to build up a long-term relationship with them, and this is really just the first step in that relationship. It's not a case of going to the first person down the road and getting a good cheap job done. It's a specialised building, it's an old building, it's a listed building. We have to have the right expertise, and I believe the process that we've been through has been quite rigorous. Has selected the correct architect. This is the first part of that process, and it will set out what we really need to do and how that might fit in with longer term plans as well. Just in terms of finances, again, people have asked about this before. They've looked at what's in the grant application, and I think it says with £110,000, and people say, oh, why are you asking for a lot more money when you've got 110,000? I mean, firstly, that's last year's figures in effect, and it's significantly different now. And the other point is, most of that was restricted funds, capital funds, already designated for something. And as Dawn said, from a point of view of revenue, things are actually quite tight. I don't think we're in any distress, but we're probably going to be in deficit this year. It'd be nice if we broke even, but we're in that sort of territory. So certainly not a wash with money.
Thank you. And can I ask, do you have a sense of what, you're pretty busy now and you're pleased to be busy, and I think everyone in this room will be, appreciate that and the work that you've done since lockdown and so on. How much scope do you think there is for further revenue generating activities? I know it's one of the things that you're looking at with this firm. This is part of the point of that particular project, isn't it? But do you have a sense of how much further, do you think you could double the current
No,
revenue?
I mean, if you look at the capacity in the building, there are events on virtually every day. We have a couple of days in the week where we have very little or nothing. So on a Thursday, there are a few things that happen once a month, but there's nothing regularly, nothing every week on a Thursday. So we have got scope on Thursdays, and we have a little bit of scope on Tuesdays. So there is some capacity in the building. There's certainly some capacity for weekends. We are busy most weekends, but not every weekend. So we're definitely not talking double. We might be looking at a quarter-ish, maybe, that would be my estimate. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at alternative sources of funding. So we're not just thinking about hiring and revenue related income. We're looking at friends of schemes and business supporter schemes and bricks on the wall, and we've just signed up with cashless giving so that people come to the bar and, you know, throw the fiver or whatever it is, you know, you press £5 and you can just donate there and then. So we're looking at what are the other ways in which we can get money in that isn't necessarily related to hiring activity, because we will get to a point where we've reached peak and then what do you do? So that's why we're trying to explore those other opportunities as well.
Thank you, it's helpful. I'll throw it open for other questions just on what we've heard so far, and then I'll come to the motions and take each of those in turn. Are there any other broad questions anyone's got in terms of what you've heard already from Dawn and Andy?
I would just like to point out that you and I met Dawn and had a very comprehensive tour.
And Alex as
Yes,
chair of trustees.
chair
Yes.
of the trust. There are a lot of problems that are not visible, and the bills in coming years are going to increase exponentially, I feel. And I think, you know, we have to accept that the civic law is going to be an expensive child for this committee to take on, and we've got no choice but to take it on. And that's my feeling.
I think if I can just say on that subject, I mean, we do have the benefit of being able to bring in external money.
Yeah.
And Dawn, perhaps, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're talking about 300,000 spent so far,
Yeah.
of which half of that has come externally.
Yeah.
So, yes,
I do take your
yeah,
points.
but you know, it's like
Whereas Holly Library is very difficult for them to raise
yes.
external funds, it is, in theory anyway, easier for the civic to do that.
I sort of fear the report that the architects that you've got coming in, I fear their detailed report. It will uncover the
It
truth.
will, and we're already finding things like the fire alarm that wasn't on the original report, and no need for it to be, but it's obsolete and we've had to pay for that. And these things are going to crop up in there. It's an old building.
Yeah.
Could I just say, sorry, before I open this up just for a second, that I think, you know, it's perhaps important, I'm going to suggest to you, it's perhaps important, notwithstanding what you've just said, which I think is clearly absolutely correct. I'm very much struck by the way that the staff and the trustees are going at this with a very positive attitude, and you know, and need that enthusiasm and so on, I think, to see this through. And I think, you know, it would be wrong for any of us to be sitting holding our head in our hands and thinking, oh my God, what have we done? Because it's been done, we're there, let's think positive.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
I know you're not, you're being realistic, absolutely. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Collins.
I think it's important to remember that although the civic is a bit of a bottomless pit for money, really, certainly the next 20 years it's going to be a bottomless pit. Nevertheless, what we give to the community is something that nobody else does. There are large rooms, there are rooms, we have the sorts of rooms that you can't get anywhere else in large, even at, well, almost in the valley, not quite, but, and certainly in Home Firth. So it is something that it's appropriate for us to be supporting financially because it benefits the community.
Thank you. Councillor Blacker.
Yeah, I just wanted really to speak in support of the grant application because as Councillor Ransby has said, I mean there are probably some very scary things in places that were not looked at by the last survey. And it's obviously better to know what we're facing, and better to know sooner rather than later what we're facing, so we can actually address those things that it's really important to address immediately. So I'm fully in support of the grant application for that purpose.
Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, once this report is done, it would be good as well, like similar to what Honolulu Library do, like a 4 or 5 year plan of what future works you plan to do and other things like that.
That's exactly the intention.
And,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then we can plan to budget and support you where we can do. And like Pat said, it's one of those things where they'll find things to do and works to do. Like you're working your way through your list of things that you're doing, and then by the time you got to the bottom of the list, there's stuff like that. Exactly. But the mission that you found yourself in at the start was where there was a lot of work and a lot of things that you needed doing. The building wasn't very modern and a bit run down. So we're at the early stages of this, and the hall is improving, and it's still busy. It's a very well used asset. So really supportive of all the work that you all guys have done.
Anybody else got any questions or comments to make on what we've heard so far? So, Councillor Bellamy.
Just to say, I think Civic Hall's done a fantastic job as well as the trust. I mean, that were a nightmare and all right in the beginning.
So there was a lot of common, not very helpful courtesies arrangements by some things.
Yeah, at the very, very beginning. And I think they've done a brilliant job. And to go through COVID as well, which absolutely everybody at the moment, you know, for that time. So I mean, to come out the other side and start building back up, I think, you know, and I do think we always said right from the very beginning that we would support them. In fact, we used to ring fence money. I don't know whether you still do, for them to apply for their grants for the Civic Hall, but you know, so I will completely be behind their motion.
Thank you. Anything else anybody wants to query or say in this matter? Perhaps, you know, also to remind people that it's a costly investment, but it's an investment in an asset that is ours. It's not just a responsibility, it's a long-term asset, not just for the community, you know what I mean, it's the building as well. I'll take the motions. So for the first one, hopefully relatively straightforward, to consider recommending to full council expenditure up to £500 from general reserves for evaluation for the Civic. This is for the insurance purposes. So I think we need a Rose and seconder. Thank you. Councillor Ransby, seconder. Councillor Colling. All in favour of that particular motion? Any against? Okay, thank you. To note, and then I think the other thing, well, we're noting the change in grant monies for remedial works to the fire alarm system. I think we're just noting that, is that right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then to consider recommend to full council payment of £7,800 from the earmarked reserves for the Civic Hall for capital projects out of the 10,000 that's currently available to cover the grant application for the full condition. For a full condition survey, development, building maintenance, and management plan, and associated works. So very much what we've already heard about. What the plan is. Sorry, Councillor Bellamy, thank you. Second, Councillor Ramsey. All in favour? Against?
So and then there's another motion to consider recommending to full council payment of 2,200 from EMR 329 and 7,317 and 39 pence from general reserves to meet the additional cost of £9,517 39 pence for the installation of the fire escape.
Do people feel they've got enough information on this particular motion?
Yes.
We are?
I'm happy to propose.
Okay, Councillor Colling, Councillor Blacker. Those are the second. Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shocked.
No. Shocked has much wider eyes. You'll know when you see shocked.
Okay, so proposed seconded, all in favour of that? We're not done that, are we? Against? Against? Right, that's carried as well. Thank you. Any other matters on that, within that whole item that you think we've not covered?
Could I just ask about the underlease, whether it has been,
Good point.
where
Yeah, not
progress it is and
Yeah, so I've not been able to chase that up this week, and I've heard no more, so I'm hopeful that it will go to full council on the 26th of June. Ever hopeful.
People know what we're referring to here. This was brought, I think it was brought up, it was at a council
Yeah,
meeting.
it was deferred from there,
Yeah.
because our legal advisors hadn't got back to us, so the underlease was the one, as I said, at full council. It should have been signed back in 2016, 2017. It didn't progress for whatever reason, but we are looking to progress it now. But because of the lapse of time, in all conscience, I've asked our new legal representatives that work with us on Homley Library just to cast their eye over it before I can put it in front of full council.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing else in terms of this particular item. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thanks, Andy, as well. And please go away with, with the very positive comments that we made in the room.
And if any other committee members ever want to come in and have the comprehensive tour, you're more than welcome.
It's as somebody who uses this, facilities here quite frequently, there was lots I learned on that.
To be honest,
Thanks a lot, Tom. So I shall keep us moving on. We're actually 2 minutes behind. Sorry. Okay. The next item on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen. The next item on the agenda is the report from maintenance contractor regarding the various assets and so on around in the area. We were at one point expecting that he would actually attend this meeting, but can you just explain it?
Yeah, so I realised going through the standing orders and scheme of delegation that actually there is a provision that shouldn't be asking more than one outside speaker to any one meeting. And given that I knew we were having big inputs from Homley Library and Civic today, I suggested to John that he comes to the September meeting because, just really to try to give you more of a chance as a committee as well to familiarise yourself with aspects of his work. Because one of the things on the whole council agenda on the 26th of June is I'll be asking each councillor to familiarise themselves with Home Valley Parish Council assets in their wards, benches, stone shelters and so forth. And therefore, if John comes to the September meeting, you've got more of a chance to understand what it is he's going to be reporting about. Okay, so so he would have been quite happy to come to this meeting, but I've actually asked him to postpone it. Just to say, we've got home first type toilets. There are 24 stone shelters in all, 9 war memorials that John cleans each year, 8 phone boxes and upwards of 178 benches to give you some of the scope of assets that he maintains on behalf of the parish council. The separate items in his report will be considered in each of the following items on the agenda. It's important to separate them out really for the benefit of this committee because they are you know, that they're worthy of separate consideration. But he always presents the committee with this overview, which is just helpful to look at together. He refers, or certainly you may now be aware of the asset map link. So there is on the website a link to an asset map which shows you where all of the council's benches, shelters and so forth are situated. And we've also got some works of art. There are some planters that are part of our remit near the Beauchamp Trail. There's a stone memorial above cliff. There's quite a lot of different aspects to his work really that he maintains for us. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I'll move through, I don't see you need to spend too much time on each of these separate items. We've had a report, but I'm desperately trying to find my copy of the report. But if we just briefly take each one and see if people have any questions. Mostly we're just noting the report that's been received. Thank you for that. So the first item is the public toilets. There's been a couple of comments in the report on that.
Yes, and just to say that the public toilets were visited by myself and Gemma, the assistant clerk, because we were reviewing the notice board content and the signage. The assistant clerk has got some improvements planned for the signage in the public toilets. I do encourage all service provision committee members to visit the loos and communicate any feedback that you will get from time to time from the public. You know, it's useful to have that feedback. I know from the feedback that we've had in the past how valued the public toilets are. Is a you know, somewhere where people know they're easy to find. They are generally very clean. As soon as issues get reported to John, he's on them straight away and he sorts them out. So, you know, just it's great to get feedback from you as members of this committee as well.
Thank you. I have to say, as not specifically commenting on the state of those toilets, but as somebody who does shifts down at the Homeworth Library, the number of times that people call in as visitors to the town or just people out and about, you know, the need for public toilets is desperate. I think, you know, if we can put it that way. Yeah, it's you know, desperate needs. Anything else that anyone wants to query on this? We're just noting it really. But yeah, Councillor Dixon.
I was just going to mention echo that. It'd be useful for people to go there and have a look around. Maybe when John's there as well, because you can see the service passage and the bits behind the scenes and the whole size of the building and everything like that. Like the area that we do rent out as well as that side, which we'll get into in a minute. So it's useful going down there and having a look. And as well, echoing what you mentioned before, like when the toilets, during the asset transfer, there was a period where the toilets were closed for like 2 or 3 months, and during that time, you don't notice how useful something is for the area until it's closed. And when it's closed and you've got people asking about things and stuff like that, they're all having to go into the different cafes asking to use their toilets at the old bridge and stuff like that, and it's not really fair on the businesses if people are just going in there to use the toilets and making a bit of a mess. So it's a really good thing that we do.
Thank you. And it's important for tourism, the tourist side of the town as well, which will fit in with Kirk Lee's remit and so on, tourism strategy. Anything else anyone wants to say in this matter?
Right, so let's have one more thing. In the report, we normally get advised the takings that we do get from the honesty box as well, which I don't think Johnson put it in this one, but he'll probably mention it when it comes to us in September. Because it'd be interesting to see if the takings have kind of got back to the same level what they were before the pandemic and what they were. Because we were taking around about £7,000 or £8,000 a year in just like honesty donations. And yeah, because like at one point the aim was to try and make the toilet sustainable. So by renting out half the block and then the takings to try and make the cost come down as low as possible. When Kirk Police were running the toilets before we took them on, they had an attendant there every day, and it was costing them something like £40,000 to £50,000 a year. And we've got the running cost down to in the single thing there are thousands after the money with the takings that we have, and they're much better than they were before. They're much cleaner, they're much nicer toilets than they were before. So they've done a really good job with that.
Thank you.
I'll do a report on the takings for the September meeting.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor, did you want us to raise anything? No.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure whether you were looking to raise anything. Anybody else want to raise anything on this single matter? No. Other than that, we're just noting the report. Thank you. The next item is the stone bus shelters, which you said there were 24 around the area, I believe. Yeah, I thought that's what you said. I wrote that down, but maybe.
Yeah, 24.
24. Anyone want to raise anything from the report?
Yeah, and I know John's referred to this in his report. Yeah, just to say, as context for new committee members, we do tend to, there have been a lot of maintenance issues over the Hayed Edge shelter. We've had one shelter that was recently more or less sort of completely rebuilt. A tree had fallen in, broken the roof. There's the Oldfield shelter that John's referred to here, that's just had some remedial work done to it to stop antisocial use of it. I did have just to let you know that I did have a request from Home Pride to provide them with some paint for the shelters, because I know Home Pride do a weekly graffiti check on the shelters in Homeford, certainly. And Home Pride do a brilliant job, there's no doubt about it. But I think because we have our maintenance contractor, it is important that the work on the shelters just remains within his remit. So I've not replied yet to Win from Home Pride, but I'm going to thank him for his offer, but just to say that really what we need is reports of damaging graffiti to get it to us as fast as they can, so that we can commission John to do the work that's needed doing as soon as possible. He is undoubtedly the right person to do that work.
Anybody else want to raise anything on the shelters? No? Thank you, we're just noting it. The adopted phone boxes, we've received again an update in the report. Is there anything you want to say?
I need to withdraw this motion. I've spoken at some length to Georgina Royds from the Butchers Arms. It is still the Butchers Arms intention to adopt the box outside their premises, and in fact they bought the right paint ahead of that, so that they are thinking that when they've got time they will do some renovation work on it. So there has been a little bit of contention about this Hepworth box, if you like, because there are some residents who would like to take it over via the village association, with the parish council being the formal adopters, and use it as a book library, as you know, one of the sort of lending libraries, as it were. But the Butchers Arms really does, you know, it is right outside the Butchers Arms. Any sort of work on it without their cooperation would be really difficult for them, because they have their beer deliveries and so forth right next to it. So what I have suggested and agreed with the Butchers Arms is, you know, if they can now put this further at their priority list and sort of make sure that progress is made on that within the next year. But if no progress is made on it, and there's been no change in the next year, then I'll contact them again and suggest that Home Valley Parish Council adopts that box.
It might also be worth looking at whether they're building that into their, I don't know, the conditions of their ownership or licensee of the, I'm not sure, I haven't thought that one through, but you know what I mean, pubs change hands.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just not sure what happened. You were involved when the council did
Yeah,
something.
it's in my ward. I met Georgina a few times before. I think the actual phone box might actually be on the land that is part of the butcher's land, so it's a bit contentious. So, and another thing as well is the phone box is actually listed. I don't know why. It just looks like a normal phone box to me, but it must be a special one, or it must be unique in the way it looks. And I would quite happily not take on a listed building or listed asset because it brings issues and problems with it. So if the butchers are very happy to take it on, then it's fine with me.
Yes, I do like that, thank you for that. Does anyone else want to comment on this, or generally on the, you know, sort of the, I mean, it's a relatively recent development, I think, it's been around for a few years, you know, using these telephone boxes for other purposes in the community. Is anybody, given that we're a fairly new committee of members and so on, anyone want to make any comment on this or query?
The Woodendale vegetable one is very nice when you no longer have a vegetable garden and you can hop in there and see what they've got. I'm enjoying it immensely.
Do people feel, can I just ask, you know, from what they know of local community feeling and so on, that the community generally support that idea? Yeah? Okay.
The boxes in the villages, the ones that are used as book exchanges, are really well supported, and it all depends on the custodian, really. You know, the landlady at the police looks after the home one, for example. We've got good custodians now in Upper Thong. You know, they all do a fantastic job to make sure that it's used, it's still current. If there's an issue with it, they get in contact with us. If John needs to do any refurbishment. John has actually now got a national reputation for renovating the Red Heritage Field, to the extent that if you find yourself in London and there's a very nice one in Soho, he did it. So you know, it's amazing how word spreads, and he's got his wider field, his parts of Wales and all sorts as well to do boxes there. His reputation's just spread. The only box really that is underused, that is currently adopted by Home Valley Parish Council, is the one by the post office in Home Firth, which we've not yet managed to find a custodian for. Its adoption was already in process when I became clerk, and you know, it's right, given its central position, that something is made of it, but we've not yet really found a custodian to take that box on.
I wonder if this might also, what you were just saying about John's sort of, you know, his reputation spreading far and wide, perhaps it's again something that can go to the comms committee, I don't know, you know, to, you know, let's shout about it a bit.
Yeah.
And also ask for ideas for the Home First one.
Yes. Nice one. Thank you. Moving on. So we're just noting that again. Moving on. Update on the many benches. What we have. So
Yes.
again, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, absolutely. And in particular, I do want to talk about the two benches where we've had requests from members of the public for the installation of memorial plaques. So I know I included the council memorial bench policy in your papers to have a look at. So one is for the bench on Flush House Lane, and if you look on the asset map, that's bench A7. So up near Booth House, I think that particular one is. And the other one is in Honley, on Roundway, opposite Grasmore Fold. So John, our maintenance contractor, he's going to get back in touch with me this week about the dimensions for the plaques. I'll then get back in touch with the two members of the public who have asked about them. They've submitted to me the wording they want to go on the plaques. In both cases, the wording is lovely. I'll share it with the chair and vice chair of the committee, before these plaques are actually made. So what happens is we set the dimensions, we approve the wording, the members of the public provide us with the plaques, John installs the plaques. So it's still, you know, our contractor that we're using for the work. So that's the way in which it operates at the moment. They can give up to a £50 voluntary donation, which will then go into the chairman's expenses account, and if there is money left in that at the end of the year, it can go to the chairman's nominated charity, as set out in the policy. So that's how it works, but I'm quite happy to answer any questions about it. And what I would say is I'd like the committee to consider approving affixing memorial plaques to bench A7 and bench Honley 42 in line with the memorial bench policy.
So, Councillor Collins, seconded, Councillor Ransby. All in favour? Against? And there was, I think, another point that you want to make about adopt the bench, was it?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm going to ask is that, as I said, I'll ask all councillors to check out the assets in their particular wards, benches in particular. So and you know, when you're out walking in things, if you see a bench that you think needs a fresh coat of paint, take a picture of it, let me know, I get in contact with John, and that's how we sort of get things refurbished. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you for that. You haven't got, I think, war memorials on this particular list. It was in the report. Is there anything that anyone, you can see in the report that it takes minimal maintenance, according to John. He washes them once a year and moves wreaths in February unless specifically asked not to do so. Anything anyone wants to comment? Councillor Dixon.
It's been brought to my attention about the lettering on the war memorial in Hepworth. It might need some colouring put inside it. If you could mention it to John, Jen, I'd appreciate it.
Where is it? Is it at the junction?
It's if you go down to the church in Hepworth,
yeah.
and start at the bottom of the list, this is the entrance.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else anyone wants to comment on in terms of war memorials?
Does the lettering need redoing?
I think it just needs painted inside it, or it needs colouring inside it, because it's faded, so it's quite difficult to read.
Right, we probably have to use a contractor as an John,
Yeah.
but as it happens, the names we had on the Home Birth Wall Memorial, so we know a local contractor who is appropriately qualified to do that work.
Yeah.
So.
But if John's on his rounds, he'll have a look and then he'll have to say what he's doing.
He'll tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay, thank you. The Gartside buildings, this is the building that's attached, I believe, to the...
Yes, it's the little retail unit that you'll see attached to the toilet. So all the things that Kirklees Building Control have asked us to put in place now are in place. That's important because the tenant needs to have the address properly registered with Kirklees so that he can have Wi-Fi and all that kind of thing actually installed as part of running his business there. There is a slight change of use. When the property changed hands to a new tenant in November, first of all, he was using it to provide premises for his online sales from Home for Vintage and also really for storage. He's now started to open it on weekends, and this is for the sale of vintage sportswear. Who knew there was ever such a thing? Vintage sportswear that's targeted at 16 to 24-year-olds, so it is deliberately at a young audience. So he's installed, he's talked to me about the need to advertise this particular venture, and I advised him that any signage needed approval and sign-off from this committee. So he knows that the signage he's put up is temporary and will be considered here. I've discussed this with Rich, who has told me, and I know people on the planning committee may want to comment, that signage is supposed to be in line with Kirklees heritage restrictions regarding this. I just sort of tell you, I can't sort of report any more on that at the moment. I can't say whether the signage he's erected is in line with that. I can say it is quite clearly temporary in that it's just been, you know, sort of, it's of the banner kind rather than an installation. But what the tenant wishes you to do as a committee is to consider giving permission for that additional signage. It is after the fact because he's already erected it, but he knows that he does need your permission.
Thank you. I'm putting money on somebody in the room probably making a comment on this.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Bentley, first one.
As far as I'm aware, signage has to go through Kirklees planning. I'm absolutely convinced, even banners, you can't just put them up, and I know that because I've seen them. I've seen Kirklees go down and round and chop them down. So I think he needs to contact Kirklees planning department.
Right,
Right
so,
away.
and if he contacts Kirklees planning and they contact us as a parish council because it's our building, I suppose, what view do you want to take on it as a committee is what I'm trying to elucidate.
That's a different thing, see, isn't it? That
Okay, well, thank you for that, and I think I have a feeling we might be picking up on exactly that point now. Councillor Blackett, would you say something?
Just a couple of things. Was it asking permission for this retrospective permission for this temporary signage, or was it around more permanent?
The signage that he's got up.
The
at
signage he's
moment,
got.
yeah.
And we've got photos of that in the
Yes, I've seen the photos of that. But I mean, as I think Clark was suggesting, I mean, I think this is part of a much wider concern about about signage in Holmfirth, and there's certainly a big job of work to do there. It's varied. It varies greatly. There's some really good examples and some that are not. I think perhaps Councillor Ransby might want to come in here.
There was a meeting of Holmfirth Conservation Group trustees this morning. We had a bit of a working party, and I suggested they might wish to help us produce a signage shop front policy to submit to Kirklees as part of an addendum to the neighbourhood plan. And that has been received positively. But with regard to the outside sign, it's inappropriate. I think is a polite way of putting it. Just looking at the sign vis-a-vis the square foot of the space, it's just completely inappropriate. And I would not like to give any consent or any sort of wording which implies that we are wholly in agreement with the sign as it stands, even on a temporary basis. But they will need to get Kirklees consent to put any signage up.
Thank you. Just before I come to Councillor Dixon, so as I understand at the moment, and thank you Councillor Beverley for raising the point that that it needs to go to planning anyway. So at the moment we're getting perhaps a sense of the feeling in the room about this particular signage, and going forward from there. Councillor Dixon.
We did previously have a policy which was for wooden signs in the conservation area, which were externally illuminated, so non-internal illuminated. But that's not something for the planning committee. I'm not sure what the current policy is. I looked at the picture of the sign and it does look scruffy. It looks temporary. It looks like something that they might just be trying it out for the summer to see how it gets on. And if it does do alright, then they might open it up full-time with permanent signs. If it doesn't work out, then they'll probably get rid of it and just go back to using it as storage. So at the moment, like, I can kind of understand what they're doing, because they might not want to fork out a few grand on some signs on something they're not going to use in the long term. So I agree with Councillor Ransby about it, but I also think as well, if it's just a short-term measure, then yeah. But like if it's, but in about 3 or 4 months, it's still there and still want to do trading and use it, it's been a success, then get a permanent sign. But we should go through Kirklees, like Donna's mentioned. It's not really our jurisdiction.
Even to go through Kirklees for temporary ones.
I mean, it would be better as a temporary signage to have some sort of banner which is installed on the days that it's open. That would be highly visible, rather than...
But we probably want people to be aware of it so they can come to visit it though, and you can't just put it up and say open.
But it's, yeah.
Okay.
We need, the
First
council,
question.
sorry, the council does need a policy document to supplement the neighbourhood plans.
Okay, so we've got a bigger picture thing going on here as well, and also potentially this falls between this committee, I think, and the planning committee, as I understand it. There's a formal process as well that we should be referring the tenant to, in terms of getting planning permission. I suppose the only other question is, can we live with it for the moment? Are there objections here to it remaining up beyond tomorrow?
Can I just say something? It's actually illegal.
Yeah,
Because he hasn't got no planning permission or a licence or whatever it is, planning. I think Kirklees give a licence through planning to have a banner up. I would say it's probably illegal.
As your clerk, I could not possibly advise you to do anything that's illegal.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
So,
I actually think that signage is probably illegal. That's why I'm saying.
So the motion is set out here. I would like to withdraw that motion, starters.
Okay.
Could
Sorry,
this be put on the agenda for the next planning meeting? Facilitate.
Can I move that Jen, you go to him and advise him that he's got to go to Kirklees about it, contact planning at Kirklees and see where they stand, because I think he'll just have to put an application in. Because the only people that are going to make that decision is Kirklees planners. Officers.
Councillor Rice.
I get where you're coming from in terms of this banner, because I've seen it, and it is a rather large banner. There are lots of banners up around Homeforth that are just tied to railings and fences, etc. But I don't know where
I'm outside this building.
we could really complain about that, but we're picking on it, whereas there are lots of banners, I have no idea what the rules are in relation to those.
Councillor Green.
I'm not saying they shouldn't.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think as a council, that's irrelevant, because we haven't given permission for any of those little banners to go up. This is our building, and we've been asked our opinion on it, and our opinion has to comply with the law.
Was another, sorry, let somebody else say what to say.
I was just going to support Steve, just that, you really manage council to look at signage in Homeforth, it's absolutely shocking. And there are national sort of recommendations of what we do, and most of what happens in Homeforth does not comply with that.
This comes under the remit, I take it, more of the planning committee in this committee, I think. So, yeah, but it's a point well made. Do we have enough to move forward there?
I think there's for me to advise him that he's got to go to Kirklees, that's part of it, and that can just be put in the minutes. It's an action for me to do. I think what you do need to clarify is, are you going to direct him to take it down?
I think we should do it in the short term until the clarification from Kirk Police about it. If he's breaking the law, until he does what he needs to do according to Kirk Police, he should take it down because it's illegal. And then we won't get in trouble either.
Thank you, Councillor Green.
Can we ring Kirk, please, and get their advice on?
Councillor Collins.
Once we've established the legality or otherwise, is there any way we can help him to do, and I think Councillor Dixon may be right, that he doesn't know whether this is going to work out at weekends. It seems harsh to make him spend hundreds on an expensive, tasteful board if it's an experiment to see if he can make it work at weekends. And can we give him some guidance as to the sort of size and things of a temporary sign that he could use?
And I would just say that he pays his rent on time. The previous tenant, councillors who've been councillors for some time will know the issues we have. So he's been a really good tenant.
He's a brilliant tenant. Yeah, I think we owe it to him to support him and help him develop his business. So if there is a way of finding a temporary measure for him to do this test on whether it works, and then if it does, for him to invest in more expensive signage.
Well, given what Councillor Collins just said, I mean, maybe that could be part of the conversation that Clark has with, if you're going to contact the police planning and see what they're, because we're not in a position to make up rules about temporary signage. So.
Well, it is our building though, this is unique, it's not like
it is our building, but it's the same rules would still apply.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
If it helps, I will go down this week and talk to them about avenues for them to explore.
Okay.
If that helps.
Very much with a hat on of your interest in the conservation group and strategies and so on. Yes?
Can you look for a solution for him, a
Yes,
short-term
I'll
solution, an
talk about
affordable
the
solution for him?
I'll sit down.
Yes, no, Chair.
Can I just say that there is a budget heading 4325, the lettable space, that has £1,000 on it. So something you may want to consider is whether you are prepared as a committee to help towards any permanent signage that you do approve of.
Only when we know if it's going to carry on more than 3 months.
I mean, it could be the case that we do choose to put like some kind of board on there, which then further users want to mount something onto it, as if we get different people renting it. Then something like that, which could be reused, it might be useful, I don't know.
Could you take that into account?
I'll explore avenues with
Thank you. And
I mean,
perhaps you can liaise with
I'll
Jen.
come back to Jen. I mean, it could take at least 4 months to actually get
Yes,
out.
he could have finished his experiment in time.
Are we happy that we've resolved that as best we can at this stage? Thank you very much for your inputs on that.
So it will be reflected in minutes, Chair. It is an action for me to contact him, to explain the issue with the banners, to say that Councillor Ramsby will be in touch with him shortly to give advice. And also, one of the things I will say is that this committee would, once we are clear about the situation and once any further more permanent acceptable signage is ready, this committee would be looking to support.
Yes.
Thank you. Never expected that was gone. And just when you thought your evening wasn't going to get any better, we're on to dog poo. Dog waste strategy.
Yes. In terms of actions that I can report on that you might want to consider, so that we have as a committee one unallocated dispenser left, and I have had a request from a member of the public for that to be installed in Homebridge, okay, near the cricket ground, and that seems a fair way of using it to me. It's not doing its purpose there at all, so unless there is any counter feeling here, I'm going to go ahead and ask a contractor to install that in Homebridge in the expected place. We have a number of fantastic volunteers who keep the dispensers refilled. There have been some issues with particular dispensers, one in particular based in Honley, where the waste bags have disappeared at alarming rates. But it is part of the strategy to provide, and that's why there is a budget for it within the Service Provision Committee's remit. But happy to answer any questions about that.
Is the great disappearing dog poo bag scandal of Honley continuing, or has it abated?
I don't know, but I'll ask June McLean and she'll know.
There's a black market in them.
I've not
Well,
had
they were disappearing on day one.
Yeah, the same up at Cliff. I put 25 bags in Cliff one morning, went back up in the afternoon, and all 25 had gone.
Yeah, but it happens every time in Honley. It's a scandal. It's the Honley scandal.
Seriously thinking of hiding in the bushes to see them sitting there up at Cliff. Oh, it's very annoying.
Any further questions on this? I have a question for my own education, which is about, not about the bag dispensers, but about dog poo bins. I'm assuming this doesn't come under our remit. Correct.
No.
Does it come under Kirkland's remit?
Yes.
Comes under Kirkland's.
Kirklees never have, there's no dog poo bins in whole Kirklees, because dog poo bins need to have somebody with special, special course who's qualified to actually empty them. But if you've got a regular bin that's got dog poo in it, that's fine.
Because contaminated waste,
Contaminated,
the only
yeah.
thing in it is dog poo, it's actually contaminated waste. So you just sling it in a normal waste bin with all the rubbish.
The dog. Okay, so vested interest. Sorry.
On that point, I was a bit intrigued about people being dog poos, normal bins, but Kirklees do waste paper bins, do they? Or is that anything that we have a responsibility for? I've not seen it in our remit. It's
Waste-
rubbish bin.
Waste bins,
That's
Kirklees.
Kirklees. It's all Kirklees. It's all different. They're all Kirklees.
Yeah, if I can give some context to that, because you know, the only rationale for having a bin is if it's definitely going to be emptied. So it has to be Kirklees because they do all the disposal. There are 3 bins in Holmfirth that Home Valley Parish Council contributed towards, but on the understanding that Kirklees, who provided the main contribution, would then take them over and bin.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, youth work in the Home Valley. This is a significant item. Do you want to say a little bit, put this in context again?
I can, and I've also, if I can just give Councillor Firth the documents that I emailed to people today. Some printed copies for you here, Councillor. Can I send them down?
Yeah.
So there were additional documents emailed out by the clerk today, and I can say from personal knowledge this has been an ongoing issue, and to buildings to the point where we are now.
Yeah.
Can you put that in context?
Yeah, so I know I've put some narrative into the agenda, and clearly there has been a report forwarded today. As clerk, I have to say you need to consider carefully whether the information you've received actually fulfills what was asked for in previous meetings in terms of a financial outline of where the money will go and key performance indicators on how the success of the project will be judged. So my view is that you may wish to defer this consideration of this item until the next meeting in September.
We've had a chance.
I'm going to invite. Do you want to say anything on this? Because you're on the steering group.
Well, I didn't know till I opened this document that I was. even though I have had conversations with Susan from Gertrude Youth Alliance, but that's to do with the work that I was doing for Honley Youth Project. So we have had discussions about a possible way forward, but didn't realise that a steering group had been created for.
But they've had meetings. They've had several meetings.
Well, I have had a meeting with them, but only as part of them coming along to a Honley Youth meeting. I can contact Susan. I'm happy to be involved from a parish council perspective. That doesn't bother me. I've been involved in some of their meetings before. I didn't realise they'd created a steering group with these people on it. That's the first time I've seen that. But them having meetings when I've not been around, I don't know. But
Sometimes they do their meetings through Teams.
Possibly. I mean, I have been invited to Kirklees Youth Alliance meetings, but not Home Valley Youth Steering Group meetings, which is a different thing to me. So I will contact Susan and find out. I mean, in principle, I can support what they're saying, but being part of the steering group, which I didn't realise I'd confidence to say that so I own this document, you know.
There were two, just to say, there were two other members of this committee, previous members of this committee, who were also on there but under with other hats on, which was, sorry, can I just, can I keep this as one meeting, please? Susan, can I keep this one meeting? There were two other members, previous members of this committee, Councillor East and Councillor Carey, who were on that steering group. Who may or may not know that they were on it, I don't know, given what you said. But we're there with...
Councillor Carey is heavily involved and does know what's going on.
Okay, so there with other hats on, and presumably continue, with those hats on. I don't know, I know for a fact that there is further interest amongst people here, generally in the youth provision, and perhaps playing a greater part in what's going on there. We have one member who's on it, and I don't know whether it's restricted to one member on that steering group or not. And I'd also like to throw in there that going forward, it may be that we would like to establish a working group, subcommittee or whatever, to also, to dovetail with that, or whether it's premature to do that, whether we should be letting the steering group do its work in establishing the service first and then taking it forward from there. So for the moment, can I just ask, people have had a chance to read the reports. I can, just to fill in here, say that if you look back, this dates back at least to November. It came up again earlier this year, in February, I think. I know that Jen has been chasing for this information, and I'll be honest, it's not come forward. Councillor
Yeah, I mean, I've no hesitation in saying that I feel this report is really deficient. This is missing. It's got erroneous information. It doesn't do what we asked. It has nothing about KPIs. There's no specificity whatsoever. I just think it's totally not fit for purpose. So I don't think we have any option other than actually defer to the September meeting. And I feel really sorry about this because we made what was a bold decision really to commit a large amount of money in our terms to the provision of youth work, and this hasn't worked out. And I assume we'd still wish to commit a lot of money to youth work, but particularly post pandemic and the catastrophic effect it's had on young people. And this is really not moving us forward at all, and it could be almost a year from September. It's going to be almost a year since we started this, so I feel, yeah, I feel we definitely need to defer at least.
Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there may be some people as well who haven't had a chance to read it because it was a bit short notice. I haven't had a chance to read it.
Fair enough. And you know, that is a comment perhaps, you know, about how late it was, you know, and I know that, the clerk was chasing this, and told her actually it's really difficult to get it in time. They've known about this for months and months and months.
And it was kind of part of the reason for making this sort of a commitment and saying we'll get a big lump and I'll work with experts was to get expertise. We wanted to know what it was we were going to get and how it would be done. So I haven't been through it either. I sort of glanced at it, but I'm sure Councillor Black is correct.
And I endorse it.
It's a
I
big
have read it in
disappointment,
detail.
and this is a huge amount of money for this council. I mean, I think we should think about holding it until we get something more satisfactory, if that's what if we feel it's unsatisfactory at the next meeting.
Councillor Kirby.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the surprise of seeing my name there, I think if I'd been down on the Hornley Youth Committee, I would have accepted it. But I'm down here representing the parish council, and nobody spoke to me about doing that. And for example, you know, if we talk about Friends of Hornley Library, myself and Pat were nominated by the council to represent the council on that steering group. That's not happened with this at all. I think by default, because I've been involved and because I'm now parish council, I've been put down to represent the parish council, which I can sort of see why they've done it a little bit, but
it indicates sloppiness, doesn't it?
a phone call would have been nice. It's a bit different representing one thing than being your name put down as a councillor, representing the parish council when I've not had that conversation with anybody.
I like a bit, critique, whatever. And I just thought, as someone who doesn't really know what the project is about, I didn't learn anything. They listed things that they would like children to do, and then they listed Heckman's Football Club, and there's just sort of random things, and it just felt very peculiar.
Yes, and how will you achieve this? We'd all like children to be happy, fulfilled and well educated. What are you going to do?
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said so far about the lack of detail in this. My worry is that if we're not going to commit the money, is that what we're saying?
The money has already been approved, but it's subject to receiving further report showing how the money is to be spent and demonstrating value of the money. And that should lead the committee to resolving how the money is to be paid out, 25,000 in 3 sections, and whether any criteria are to be used to trigger the release of the money. So that was what was required at the last meeting.
I know, I get why we can't do it, why we don't want to do it now. It's just what is going to be the knock-on effect of them not getting the money that they were expecting to get, is my worry, given how important.
I think we're hoping that the threat of not giving them the money will make them get their act together and give us a decent proposal, not a money one.
So we're invited to this evening's meeting as well.
I mean, it's even, there will be knock-on effects, but if we truly, and we can't discuss it now because several of us haven't read it, at the next meeting, if we truly feel this is inadequate, then we cannot commit £25,000 other people's money to, if public money, to something we don't know what we're going to get for it.
Any other views on this? Any alternative views, perhaps in particular?
It's not really an alternative, it's reinforcing what Solomon said. We want to spend that money, but we had some, but we wanted something in return, and it's just not being provided. So, what we're supposed to do, I support asking for a more detailed report.
I think we will need to allocate quite a long part of the agenda on this when we do discuss it. Unless we create a working group to look at it in detail and come to the next meeting with recommendations. So they go through every sentence rather than the whole
And
committee.
meet with the representatives
Yeah.
as well, perhaps, and hammer out some of the.
That might be the way to
Would that be
progress it.
Councillor Kirby.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly add, through the experience I've had with Homley Youth and grants that we've got, which have been quite substantial at times, we have to be very clear about the KPIs we're trying to meet, and then at the end of the project, detail exactly how we've done and how we've met those KPIs. So I think maybe one of the things I could offer to do is to sit down with Kirkland Youth Alliance and go through some of the things we've had to do. I think it may be just a lack of understanding as to what we were after, and they think they've nailed it, but actually it's way off the mark. So maybe if I spent just a little bit of time talking to Susan about that, to try and look at the sort of things that really we should be looking for.
And if she were able, through you, if she were able to produce a revised, saying by the next meeting, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bailey, sorry.
I mean, I actually know Susan quite well, and she is usually, she is really quite good. Would it be better to actually get her to come to a meeting and explain it? I think might be better than. I mean, I agree. I mean, I've only briefly read it. I haven't read it all, and there's not a lot there, to be honest. I think there is a lot missing, and I just think it might be better for her to come and actually explain.
Can I just say, just an explanation, that she was invited to come tonight, and also I know that Jen gave a warning as to what the risk was if it wasn't, if that information wasn't to our satisfaction tonight.
I don't think she's aware.
I think getting her to come and explain, I think Glenn talking to her before she does would be helpful for her. But I think we can't just settle for a verbal expansion. We need a good document. We get audited by external and internal auditors, and it is our duty to be financially, bulletproof.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
I agree with the proposal of setting up a working group. My question is can we authorise that working group, if they approve, to release the monies, rather than wait until September? We've already allocated the money.
No, it would have to
I'm not interested.
Come back to the committee.
So it's going to wait till September.
Sorry, Councillor Black.
But at least setting up a working party might actually expedite the process, because if we say we defer it till September, then we don't get the report till September.
Yeah.
Whereas if we have a working party, then we can incorporate Councillor Kirby's ideas about talking to Susan Greenwood as well. I mean, I think it's really important that we do start to make some progress on this. And really, the report that was produced was a kind of general report. It was not a report written for this committee, which again is pretty poor. So yeah, I'd like to move that we set up a working party.
Can I just advise Ms Magdalene that she had said that she couldn't come up with a report for tonight. She said, but I've got this other thing, and I said, without having seen it, said that may well suit our purposes if it has that sort of information within it, but it doesn't.
Yeah, so just to say, in terms of the authority a working party might have, of course, any payment over £5,000 has to go to full council in any case. I think, what might be useful is having that working party, as you said, get all your ducks in a row so that this committee on the 18th of September, I think it is, or 19th, can make that recommendation that the money is released in however you're going to do it, whether it's going to be the whole 25,000 or in instalments. And it's obviously there would have been an intention to set up a provision from the beginning of September, I'm assuming, because it's supposed to be running during term time. But
just to be sure, I don't think a working group should have the authority to release funds. I think it should come back to the committee. They can come back with recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. So they do work aside and then report back.
Okay, Is that, are we okay on that first in principle? So we're then setting up a working party.
We can do it now.
I was going to say, let's do it now and let's we have volunteers for it. I don't think we're necessarily looking at a maximum size, but I'm
If
assuming.
Glenn is willing, can I suggest he leads it?
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I think you want a working party that of no more than 4.
Yeah.
Otherwise it becomes just totally
Yeah.
too cumbersome.
And you can meet on Zoom, you don't have to drive along the valley and things like that.
I'd be happy to.
Councillor
volunteer
Blacker,
myself.
Councillor Barnett. Councillor Green.
Smash it.
That's 4. That's 4. Have you got this? Yeah, so
Just
Councillor
spread
Barnett,
across the valleys.
Councillor Green,
Because I have
Councillor
met
Blacker.
Susan before, because I'm part of the community group and I've spoke to her before.
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
Speak to us before, as a committee.
And can we leave it to that group to help to drive this forward
Yeah.
as soon as possible?
Just it's in a spirit of goodwill and wishing it to be made right.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not,
Mm.
we want to shoot this down in flame.
Right, so can I ask then that you find a proposer and a seconder for a motion to institute a working party consisting of Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barnett, Councillor Green and Councillor Kirkby, led by Councillor Kirkby, to liaise with Kirkby's Youth Alliance with a view to bring recommendations regarding previous resolutions to Service Provision Committee in the September meeting.
Yeah.
Very good to me.
I'll
Yeah.
propose that.
Proposed, Councillor Collins, seconded, Councillor Barnett.
Yeah.
All in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you. Cool. Next, removal of shark fins from Hunsworth Centre. I'm conscious of the time, it's 1 minute after 9. So is everyone in agreement with
Suspending standing orders.
suspending standing orders? I didn't get the script right, did I? Suspending standing orders for a short time, thank you. Removal of shark fin from Hunsworth Centre. This is just a report and to note.
Yeah, just to know, I still need to do a letter to the Kirklees ward councillors regarding this. But yeah, it's an ongoing project to get the shark bin outside Hunsworth toilet removed, and it's just trying to get Kirklees to finalise which of their departments is responsible for it. Because sometimes it's highways, sometimes it's other ones or whatever, but it's an ongoing project.
Okay.